Russia-Ukraine news. Ukraine's drone attack on Crimea was stopped by Russian forces. On Friday, Moscow claimed that its air defense forces had stopped an overnight drone attack on Crimea by the Ukrainian military. The Russian Defense Ministry has confirmed that Russian forces shot down 42 Ukrainian drones over the Crimean Peninsula and one missile over the Kaluga region. Air defense forces shot down 9 drones, and electronic warfare caused the engines of another 33 to fail over Crimea. Moscow's appointed governor of the Crimean port city of Sevastopol, Mikhail Razvozhayev, claimed on Telegram that multiple drones had been shot down over the Kherson's promontory. For a few hours, all flights out of Russia's airports were cancelled. No casualties or significant damage were reported immediately following the attacks. As for Yevgeny Prigozhin, Putin described him as a talented businessman who made serious mistakes on Thursday night. On Thursday, the Pentagon announced that beginning in January, the United States would begin training Ukrainian F-16 pilots so that they could use the advanced aircraft against Russian forces. Ukraine has wanted these high-tech fighter planes for a while now in preparation for the Russian invasion. Pentagon spokesman Pat Ryder said that the United States will train several pilots and dozens of maintenance personnel. They will study English at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas in September before moving on to F-16 training in Arizona, he said. Morris Air National Guard Base in Arizona will serve as the training location, he added. A talented man who made serious mistakes, as Putin puts it, best describes Prigozhin. Western security sources warned that the apparent assassination of the Wagner Group leader had emboldened Russian President Vladimir Putin, who said Yevgeny Prigozhin was a talented businessman who made serious mistakes. James Crisp, Natalia Vasilyeva, and Ben Riley Smith wrote for The Washington Post. Putin finally spoke out nearly 24 hours after mercenary leader Prigozhin and his top deputies were killed when their private jet was brought down by what is believed to be a bomb. A British security source said on Thursday that Putin now has a quasi-private army at hand, because of the incident, lending credence to Western suspicions that he ordered the killing. Putin said Prigozhin made a great contribution to the war in Ukraine in a brief address from the Kremlin on Thursday night. The president also stated that inquiries into the cause of the accident were underway. Today, we will update you on the latest information regarding the conflict in Ukraine and the fatal crash of Yevgeny Prigozhin's private jet. The current NATO military exercise in Georgia, a Caucasus nation, should allay concerns about the country becoming pro-Russian, analysts say, as Georgia seeks to build a more pragmatic relationship with Moscow. In the months following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, Georgia's government has come under fire for failing to impose sanctions on Moscow and for refusing to supply weapons to Kyiv. Prime Minister of Georgia Irakli Garibashvili has also blamed NATO expansion for starting the conflict. Tbilisi has shown that it is still interested in working with the Western Alliance by opening its doors to troops from nearly a dozen NATO and partner countries on Monday for 2 weeks of war games. Andras Roch, a senior fellow at the German Council on Foreign Relations, argues that despite the geopolitical changes and risks, Georgia remains an important partner. When it comes to NATO and Georgia's relationship, I think this transformation of the geopolitical environment should override occasional fallbacks in bilateral relations. Since 2011, 3 years after the Five-Day War, in which Russian forces invaded the small country to prop up 2 separatist regions, Abkhazia and South Ossetia, the Agile Spirit exercise has been held regularly in Georgia, bringing together some 3,500 troops, including about 1,200 Americans. There is still a presence of Russian forces in those areas, and many Georgians are worried that regardless of the outcome in Ukraine, Russia may try to occupy even more of their country. Experts say these issues must be taken into account when evaluating Tbilisi's actions. According to Charles Kupchan, a senior fellow at the New York City Council on Foreign Relations, Georgia is trying to find a balanced approach by improving relations with both Russia and NATO. Kupchan elaborated, saying that approach does not entail a decision to avoid exercises with NATO, which is exactly what this exercise is demonstrating. Agile Spirit, an international military exercise led by the United States Army and the Georgian Defense Forces, has seen a tripling of its participant countries since its inception more than a decade ago. There are 10 countries represented this year that were formerly part of the Eastern Bloc.